Hey guys, welcome back. So in this module, we're going to start talking about direction. We have moved through the stabilization phase, you now have some tools that you can use, and hopefully you are feeling a little bit clearer, possibly even a little bit calmer about progressing through the rest of this course. In this module, there's 3 lessons. It's all about finding direction. So it's not a case of actively taking steps to move forward. That will come in time. This module is purely about identifying that direction. In this first class, we're going to identify our North Star. This is our sort of driving force. It is something that can be ongoing. It can also be something that changes over time. What might be your North Star now might not be your North Star in 6 months' time or even 5 years' time, because we're always changing, the goalposts always move, and our circumstances change. So this is where the course starts to come to life, because you start to understand that these principles that we're working through and these things that I'm teaching you will help you throughout the rest of your life. You'll be using them now, and you'll be using them in a year's time, and hopefully in 5-6 years' time. So let's talk a little bit about direction before we move on to identifying our own North Star. So direction is really important in order to actually move forwards. And whilst that might sound really straightforward and really obvious, what I mean by that is moving without direction can actually become quite problematic. As someone that spent years working frontline and finding time in the gym alongside working all of these crazy shifts, I wasn't actually looking after myself, but because I was always busy, I felt like I was working on something. I felt like I was achieving something. I felt like things were moving forwards for me, but the reality was I was just getting more and more exhausted. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And it's something that spilled over into my life since leaving the front line, is that I still have this drive to be moving when I feel uncomfortable. And by having a North Star, by having a sense of direction, it gives you purpose. It gives you something that you can refer back to. So when you are making decisions and when you are looking at changing something in your life, whether that's a small step or a large step, you can actually refer back to this and start to think, does this actually align with the life that I want? Does this work towards the thing that I have said to myself and identified as my direction, as my life's purpose? And that is far more powerful than just moving for the sake of moving, just moving to feel productive. And ultimately, we just end up directionless. We end up feeling tired, we end up feeling unfulfilled. And that's ultimately why we end up feeling stuck, because we look around and we think, I'm doing all of these things and I am moving, I am being productive, I'm trying so hard, but nothing is changing for me. I still feel like I'm stuck. And it's because of this. If you can start to look around all the things you're doing, and if they are actively moving you towards something which you feel is in your belief system, is in your values, it's your purpose, then everything will start to feel easier. Because when you are working those long hours, when you are showing up again to work on your project or your fitness, because it will come back to this guiding principle that we are going to identify shortly, it will have so much more drive and you'll feel so much more fulfilled when you're doing it. It will be easier to show up and you won't feel burnt out whilst doing it. Okay, so we're gonna move into actually identifying our own North Star now. So just like we did with the reset cycle, I want you to grab a bit of paper, grab some colored pens, whatever is going to help you to make this a bit more engaging and a bit more enjoyable. If you're someone that is visual and you want to make this into pictures and you want to draw, that is absolutely fine. There's no rules, there's no right way to do this, there's no wrong way to do this. It's whatever is going to help you feel more comfortable with the process, but also when you look back and you read your North Star or you look at the picture, you actually get a sense of, yes, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm working towards. Before we start, I just want you to think about where you are right now. So similar to what we did with the clear section of the reset cycle, just start to think the things that you are doing. You can even refer back, have a look at the thought patterns and the habits, the things that we identified when we did that reset cycle. Take a moment just to kind of refresh your memory with that. And then I want you to ask yourself, if you woke up tomorrow and everything had changed, let's say you had the perfect life, everything that you had hoped for had happened, all of your goals had come true, what would have changed? So just start to write that down on the bit of paper, whatever it is you're doing, or you can draw whatever it is, and just start to take some time to actually identify what would have changed. So pause here, give that a go, and then when you're ready, hit unpause and we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, great. So you should now have a bit of an idea, maybe something written down about what would have changed if you woke up tomorrow and you were just living your absolute dream life. Everything was perfect. There was nothing wrong. So now we can start to look to actually identifying our North Star by using this. So we can look at the dream life, we can look at the goals that we've achieved, the people around us, maybe where we're living, and we can start to actually identify what's important. So just put a line, have a new title, what's important? So it may be things that you identified in that last exercise, but it may be something entirely different. It might come down to your values, it might come down to your personal goals. And when we're thinking about what's important, I just want you to remove money, remove validation, and remove just external noise. So rather than thinking about what's important is I have X amount of money, or these people like me, or I have X amount, hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Just start to think what is important. So that comes into the next stage of how do you actually want your life to feel? And that question might help you identify what's important to you. So it's not a case of actually identifying what our goals are and what we're actually going to start doing to work towards this. That comes later. This is purely a guiding principle. This is almost take yourself out of the real world. And if I could tell you, if I could come to you right now and design your perfect life, how would it feel? What would be important to you? That could be things like family. It could be things like living by the sea. It could just be a feeling. It could be, I want to feel calm. It doesn't have to be anything big, it can be something really small. So just take a minute to really check in with yourself, maybe use one of the exercises from the first module just to calm yourself down and maybe take a breath. And then really just take some time. It doesn't need to take long, it doesn't need to be a lot of information, and just really start to really check in and ask yourself, well, what is important to me and how do I want my life to feel, taking out the equation, money, external validation, and really just focus on identity and goals. So I really want this to be a case of focusing on identity and values. It's almost a case of if you were meeting someone for the first time, how would you introduce yourself without mentioning where you're from, what you do, and what you're interested in. So what makes you you? What is your North Star? What is it that makes you feel that energy feeling that we get when we feel like we're doing something that is really aligned with us, when we're doing something which is easy because it's what we want to do. I'm sure you've had it at some point in your life where a task just feels like you're walking on a cloud because you don't need that motivation to wash the dishes or anything, because it's what you want to do, and that's what we're trying to identify here. So pause here and just take a moment to really figure this bit out, as this is important, and once you have that, we'll move forwards onto the next stage. Okay guys, so the next and final step with this is once we have a bit of paper with some notes, some pictures, some thoughts, some feelings down, I want you to try and come up with a sentence, which may be quite difficult, and I know that I found it challenging. So I'll give you a couple of examples. This could be something as straightforward as building strength that feels safe, making choices from alignment, design a life of depth, not speed. Basically just something which is quite short, which you will obviously have far more depth to because you will have done all of this exercise. And if you are struggling to identify a sentence, you can make it even easier for yourself and just use any number of the AI tools and just write in that text box that you would like a sentence to anchor your own North Star. And then in that box, write what's important to you, how you want your life to feel. Maybe you can even add, if you woke up tomorrow and everything had changed, this is what my life would feel like. And then at the end, just ask the AI tool, I would like one simple sentence that I can keep referring back to as an anchor. So now that you have this sentence, just take a look at it and ask yourself the question, how does this sentence make me feel? Is it something that feels aligned? Is it something that I can commit to for a prolonged period of time? And then you can either put it up somewhere, maybe put it on the fridge, or you could just close your book and refer back to it. It's not something that every single decision you need to be making, that you need to look at it and check in, but it's just a way of starting to understand, what is my driving force? What am I working towards and what am I working for? And this sentence just starts to provide us a little bit of an anchor for us to start moving forwards with our direction. And it's really important with this one that you don't make it too complex, you don't make it sort of outcome based or goal based, because if it is something like, I will buy a house or I will have a six-pack, then it becomes a goal and a target, and that's not what we want here. Because whilst those things might be important to you, they're not a driving force. It's an external outcome that is motivating you. And we can use those, of course, but the purpose of this is to really understand our core values, what's important to us, and how you want your life to feel. And then what you can start to do from that is, when you decide, I want to buy a house or I want a six-pack, you can refer back to this and look to see if it is something that is actually going to make you feel happy, is you feel aligned. So if you have written down something about sort of not buying into the hustle culture and slowing down and listening to your body, those kind of things, then pushing yourself to try and get a six-pack may not really align with that, because that becomes restrictive, it becomes intensity, and your sort of life revolves around diet and exercise. This then gives us a really clear platform to be able to start identifying goals which genuinely align with us. And as a result, these goals will start to feel easy. These goals will start to fill you with energy. And as you start ticking these goals off, no matter how small, you'll get that sense of fulfillment and you will feel so much more proud. So I hope that was really helpful. I hope that you have managed to find your North Star, and I will see you on the next lesson.